Chesapeake Bay Maritime Museum. I'm here with Tracy Munson. Tracy, thank you very much for coming on the program. We're just right outside the entrance to the museum. Probably the most logical place to start for our viewers is a little bit of history. When did it start? How big is it? Some of the basics.
Well, as you said, we're right here on the St. Michael's Harbor in St. Michael's, Maryland, on Maryland's beautiful eastern shore. And we started this museum, actually we didn't, but a group of volunteers started this museum in 1965. And they wanted to have a place where the stories of the Chesapeake were held in perpetuity. And so this museum was formed. We have members that support us, a core of 200 volunteers, many donors that helped make this place happen. And in fact, we have the Hooper Strait Lighthouse that was moved here in 1966. We have the Rosie Park Skipjack that's undergoing restoration right now over 3 years, finished in 2013. And we have a new tug exhibit which opened this past April and continues through next year as well. And of course, like today with the Antique and Classic Boat Festival, we have many reasons to come back and celebrate the bay and the people whose lives have been shaped around it.
Well, we certainly do, and I'm going to be telling the folks there, this is a great day trip. If you live anywhere in the Washington, D.C. or Baltimore area, it's a day trip. So you're thinking, what can I do that's really neat for the kids? There's water-based activities. As Tracy mentioned, I've seen the steamboat exhibit before, the tugboat exhibit. It's just fascinating, and you know, if the kids want a boat ride, they've got some great, I wouldn't even call them antique boats, they're older than that.
Well, every weekend we have free daily activities for families and children throughout the week, and you can go on our website at cbmm.org to find that information out. But
say that one more time directly to the camera.
Certainly, it's like Chesapeake Bay Maritime Museum, cbmm.org. And like you were saying, there's lots of ways to get out on the water. In fact, today I got to go out on the Patriot, which is goes out from the harbor here, and also on our replica buy boat, the Mr. Jim, which is a wonderful 30-minute cruise that the museum's volunteers put on for our guests. And we also have the historic skipjack, the H.M. Krentz, that goes out of the museum with reservations, so you get to sail an authentic Chesapeake skipjack, which still oysters the bay, with Captain Ed Farley right here at the Chesapeake Bay Maritime Museum.
Now you mentioned the Rosa Parks. Is this somehow named after or related to Rosa Parks, the civil rights pioneer?
Many people get the name, they think it's Rosa Parks, but in fact it's Rosie Parks, and she came from Dorchester County.
Right.
She is the mother of the boat's builder, Bronza Parks, and anybody from the bay, when they see a bronzy boat, it's like seeing a Michelangelo. You can look at the transom. It was a work boat. It wasn't intended to be a beautiful boat, but Bronzy's boats are beautiful. And so we've got Bronzy's boats here as well as many others, and the Rosie Parks was named after his mother, Rosie.
Okay, well, I'm easily confused, and I can see how that would happen.
Well, I was just on our Mr. Jim with a family that couldn't wait to see the Rosa Parks while they were here. They've been reading it in our member magazine, as I mentioned. We are supported by members, much like other non-profit organizations. And they were here for the Antique and Classic Boat Festival and also to see Rosa Parks, which is really Rosie Parks, the skipjack under restoration.
Going back to the website for a moment, not only can they find out what's going on, but if they want to become a member, they can do that as well.
Yes, there's a join tab at our website. You can join the museum. You get free general admission, free admission to many of our festivals. We have any Deadliest Catch fans out there. We have Edgar Hansen coming to our Waterman's Appreciation Day on August 12th. On July 28th, we have the Chesapeake Bay Folk Festival, and we have 5 bands coming that day, and plenty of activities. We have the Mid-Atlantic Small Craft Festival and Oyster Fest coming in November, and all of this information is at our website at cbmm.org.
Okay, well that sounds just fantastic. All right, so it sounds like there's a lot to do. You're probably chomping at the bit saying, you know, let's go inside and see what's going on. So first Tracy, I want to thank you for coming on the show, and we're going to go inside, so let's take a look and see what's in the Maritime Museum. She go in and see some other member boats as well. So, come on, let's go inside.
Let's go.
All right. We're in the Skipjack Restoration Barn, and you're going to see some fascinating tools here. For those of you that are familiar with jigsaws, take a look at that one. That's one of the bigger jigsaws I've ever seen. That's for milling boards. Big boards, of course, so they need a big jigsaw. And right here, this is a planer. You need to make the board smooth. So there's a huge whirling blade inside that machine, and you push the board through, and it in effect makes the board smooth because of that whirling blade that just barely touches and skims the surface. All right, we're still in the Skipjack shop. You can hear the music playing behind us. It's conducive, I guess, to all the things that go on here. I've got Ken. Ken, first of all, tell the viewers, what are you doing?
It's the end of the week. We're just cleaning up the shop a little bit. There's a leak in the roof, and it's falling on the placard for the table saw, so I'm just rubbing a little kerosene in it, and I'll wipe it down, and it'll be good as new.
Well, we've got some fascinating tools, and I'm sure they have proper names. How about that big red saw, first of all?
That's a ship saw.
A ship saw, okay.
Yeah, it dates to 1926.
Okay.
And the thing that's interesting about it is, unlike this band saw here, if you need to cut bevels on that, the table swivels. On this, the entire carriage pivots, but the table stays flat. That way, if you're running a big piece of stock through the blade, it's, you don't have to try and hold it up, hold it in position. The table stays flat and the carriage turns to cut the bevel.
That's fascinating. Now, for our viewers that don't know exactly what you're doing, this is for planks, for example?
You can use it for planks, yeah.
Okay, what's it typically used for?
Oh gosh, we use it for, on the decking we've been using it to cut angles in the deck planking. This material you see here is going to become deck planking on the Rosie Parks, the skipjack that we're restoring. And the wood doesn't always meet a nice flat square surface. Sometimes it's coming in at an angle, and well, we've been using this recently to cut the angles for the decking on the ship saw here. We'll get the angle with the bevel gauge, transfer that angle onto the wood, just mark a line, and then we'll run it through the table saw.
That's
if we run it
fascinating.
right, it fits.
Now, here's something you may not know about, but I've noticed this shell hanging upside down that is really dust covered. Do you know anything about that? It's huge.
My understanding is, what little I know about it is it's from the 1940s, and it once belonged to the Naval Academy in Annapolis. And I believe it's an 8-man shell, rowing shell.
It is just huge. It looks like it's waiting a long time for restoration.
Yeah, I don't even know if they have any plans to restore it or not. It's been there ever since I've been here. I arrived last October.
Well, I keep looking up in the ceiling and discovering interesting things. That looks like a boat carved out of an actual tree trunk.
It is, but unfortunately I don't know much about that one either. I haven't worked on it other than it's a dugout, and it's been there a while. I don't know if it was donated or anything.
Well, Ken, you've got some fascinating things in here. We're going to continue on. Thank you for your time. We'll learn a little bit more about the Rosie Parks later. This is On the Road. Please stay with us.
Thank you.
Let's continue with a little bit of a walking tour here. Here's a smaller jigsaw. Not everything needs to be giant. Of course, there's a lot of tools and bolts and things over there. Lots of little circular saws. Guys, if you like a wood shop, this is a wood shopman's dream. Here we go. We're with the project manager for the Rosie Parks, and please let us know your name for the viewers at home and tell us a little bit about Rosie.
My name is Mark Bartow. I've been here at the museum for about 7 years. A year ago, we launched the project of restoration of the Rosie Parks. It's a skipjack, a dredging boat, oyster boat on the Chesapeake, one of the last of 20 or 30 boats that we still have left. Our mission is to restore her as accurately as we can to her original function and design. So she'll represent a very authentic Chesapeake skipjack. She was built in 1955 alongside 2 other boats, Lady Katie and Martha Lewis. And during those years, they were launched. She was purchased by Bronza Parks' brother, Orville, and he oystered her for 20 years. In 1975, the museum purchased her from Captain Orville Parks, and she's been in our collection ever since. During which time, she got old and her fasteners began to fail. So she was originally fastened with iron nails, and of course we call that iron sick.
Well, just for our viewers at home, the fasteners are the things that hold the wood onto the frame.
Nails, the pins, all that kind of stuff. These are example of some of the pins that were in her. Each plank is pinned together like this, you see, and the iron is deteriorated, and then of course it destroyed the wood. So it was the fasteners that failed, not the wood that failed. So what we've done is taken out all her original metal, replaced it with wooden pegs. We feel that we have been able to save between 20 and 25% of the original structure of the boat, most of which is on the interior. You're not going to see that now. But her keel, her stem, her forefoot, a number of her deck beams, her chine, her clamp, a lot of the structure inside the boat is still original. What we did was we took off all the bad wood, and now, after this is a year into the project right now, we are now putting her deck on, and you can climb up on board the balcony up there and look down at the deck work.
We'll do that in just a moment. Do you have any idea on how many hours ultimately it's going to take to restore the Rosie? He laughs at that.
Hours-wise, no, I don't. But I can tell you the exact day we're going to launch her. We're going to put the boat over on October the 26th of 2013, which is next October. And the reason for that is that's the day in 1955 that she was originally launched. So we'll put the boat over next October, and then we'll spend the last year of the project basically doing her rig, her mast, her sails, put all the original winders on that pull the dredges, all the original equipment, and so we'll be completely finished with the project right around 2014, October roughly of 2014.
Well, let's go up if we can and take a quick look
Sure.
at the deck, and I'll ask you some questions about the other bug eyes that I see floating in the water.
Okay, let's do that.
So let's go take a look at the deck.
Okay, what you're looking at here is that my shipwrights are basically, we're closing in the deck work on the boat, and one of the distinctive features about Bronze Parks and skipjacks is that they have what we call a sprung deck. In other words, the deck planks are not straight, they're curved to the outside of the boat. See? It's more yachty. It's a special little thing that he did on the very few skipjacks that he built. Also, the transom it has some very distinctive features in it that are not only interesting, but it makes the boat fast. But you're looking at a sprung deck here. We're almost closed in. We'll probably be done within the week, and then we'll get this sanded. Every seam in this deck gets caulked with cotton, hammered in, and then over the top of that goes seam compound, then paint.
Well, let's go back for a moment to the wood. A lot of our viewers, of course, think of wood as something fairly hard and fairly straight. How do you get those boards to bend?
Well, believe it or not, everybody asks me that. Believe it or not, because of the lengths of the pieces, we're able to bend them dry. We don't have to steam anything on a skipjack. Most all the wood on these boats is just dry bent, including the sides, the rails, all that kind of stuff. So it's not actually as difficult as you would think. It's just fascinating to people.
Well, the planking on the hull, how thick is that?
2 inches thick.
2 inches. So you're able with
everything is 2 inches thick on these boats.
So
right
with
straight from the sawmill.
with just clamps, then you can get those boards to bend.
Yeah.
There must be some pretty strong clamps.
Well, it's not that difficult, really.
Okay. What about the skipjacks that are floating out there in the water?
Well, we have here at the museum the skipjack Herman Krentz, and that boat is actually one of the last 5 working skipjacks that we have left on the bay. And then what I say by working, what that means is that he has a dredging license, and we take that boat out and we actually dredge the old-fashioned way with the skipjacks. Our bug eye here is Edna Lockwood. She also was a dredge boat, but she's long since retired. She was built in 1889, and that's the last 9-log bug eye left in the world. That's it, right there. I mean, there isn't any more.
When you say 9 log, what do you
They're
mean?
log built. They're literally, her middle timber on her keel is one tree, And then there's 2 trees, 5 trees, 7 trees, 9 trees. They're stacked up and pinned together and carved out. It's an old Eastern Shore Indian technique, ancient, right? We're not really building boats like that anymore. That's what makes her so special.
Well, it is pretty special. One last thing, and I'll let you go. I see what looks like a forge down there. Is that just for show, or do you actually use that?
What we're doing is, What we're doing is, these boats have a lot of metal in them, a lot of pieces that we have to make. So what we're doing is, in our apprentice program, we're teaching our apprentices how to forge metal to make their chain plates, her gudgeons and pinnels that go on the rudder. All the hardware in the boat, we make it right here, right here. It's another avenue for education for our apprentices, basically. They get to learn how to do something else other than pound nails.
That's fascinating. Well, I want to thank you for your time. This is a fascinating subject, and a lot of the citizens of Maryland don't perhaps even know the debt that they owe the Chesapeake Bay Museum, Maritime Museum, for the work they're doing here.
Well, thank you very much.
It's great. Thank you much.
Thank you.
This is On the Road. Please stay with us. There are many wonderful exhibits for you to see here on the grounds of the Maritime Museum. We are in the Waterfowl Building, and we have come across Jack Simpers, who is an artist who paints ducks. This is it's too soon, Jack. I don't think you'd want me to call it a lost art because you're still here. So I guess the first question is, how long have you been doing this?
Well, quite a while. I started in 1965, and by going duck hunting, and I thought, I'd like to make those, make those decoys, and I've been doing it ever since. It's a hobby.
Well, now, how do you start? Are these ducks, are they molded, or how do you get the basic duck to begin with?
These decoys are made of Tupelo wood from Tupelo, Mississippi, and they're hollowed out. We use a bandsaw to round it off, and then hollow them out, and put the bottom back on it, and that way the decoys float right up on top of the water.
I was just going to ask, so these beautiful works of art actually then do go float in the water, and you have some kind of line or anchor or something, I guess, so they don't float away, but these actually go in the water.
That's correct. Each one of them has a weight on the bottom and a ring for the anchor line.
Well, now I see different types of ducks here. Can you tell me the different kinds? Because clearly by their feathers and shape, these are different breeds of ducks.
Starting down here is what we call a ring neck, and you can barely see it, but it has a rust-colored ring around its neck, and that's pretty much the anchor color. It has iridescent purple on it. This is a bufflehead decoy, and it has the iridescent around the head too. And it's a very small duck, and they usually fly and swim in groups of 50 to 100, and they always are diving down. A falcated teal is not one of our local ducks, but the colors of it are just really exotic, and I enjoyed working on it.
Well, I was just about to ask if all these ducks can be found in the Chesapeake area, but this third one can't.
All of these can, except this falcated teal. This is a ruddy duck, and we have them by the hundreds right out here in the harbor. Next to it is a green-winged teal, and that's because it has a green speculum on the wing side. And finally, the golden eye is a large duck. It has a white patch on its chin, and you can always tell a golden eye just by looking at the patch.
Well, you have some very beautiful ducks here. What about just a plain old mallard? I mean, where I live, we've got mallards, but I don't see any of these beautiful ducks on my little creek.
The mallards are plentiful here in this area, and I don't make very many of them because I see more of these ducks on the water than I do the mallards where we hunt. But we have our share of mallards.
Jack, if some of our viewers would like to order a duck from you or buy one that's in stock, how can they get in contact with you?
Okay, my phone number is 410-763-9139. Let me reach there. It's my shop and my home are there. same place.
Jack, how would you describe yourself? Are you a carver? Is that the name of the profession, or just?
Yeah, I'm a carver. I started in 1965, as I said, and it's purely a hobby, but I enjoy doing it so much. I make hundreds and hundreds of them now.
That's great. Well, they're very beautiful. We've been with Jack Simpers, who makes working decoys, which means they actually can float in the water, and people use them to hunt with. So, Jack, thank you very much for being on the show. This is On the Road. I'm Steve Izant. Please stay with us.
Thank you for being our guest today. Nice to have you here.
We're here with John in tow, and you see in front of John a lot of tools, some that you viewers may recognize, and others that might be a little foreign. But John is a master model maker. And John, tell us to begin with, how did you get into the business?
My great uncle was a model maker for Mystic Seaport. He had models in the New York Yacht Club, and he was very well regarded and close to L. Francis Herreshoff. We've just had a lot of naval experience in our family. I've always liked model making. This is my 50th year of making models. I'm starting to get them around the world myself, and we've got them in Osaka, Japan, and Dubai, New York City, San Francisco. Every one we do, we make every single part of. They take a lot of time. They're all one-off models. We rarely repeat ourselves. We have been on some of the most interesting boats you ever could see. It's an interesting way to make a living.
Well, John, let's switch over here and take a look at a couple of these models here. I'm going to focus in on that sailboat, and can you tell us a little bit about the history of that sailboat?
Well, I can tell you some. It's a Valiant 40. It's still under construction, and the sails are not the real sails, so please bear that in mind. It's 40 feet long. You'll notice it's got a rounded stern, not a flat stern like most sailboats. It's made for long-range cruising, and it's got some interesting things to it, such as the whisker pole here that folds down and holds the jib out for certain cruising situations.
Now, did you make that for a specific person, or?
Yes. We're still in the process of making it.
All right, so this is something someone will come and they'll commission you to make a model of the boat they have, or one that they want?
Yes. And we do it for individuals. We do it for corporations.
And how do people hear about you?
We have a website. We do shows around the country. We do shows from here on the East Coast to Lake Tahoe, California, up north to Clayton, New York, down south to Mount Dora, Florida, and shows in the Midwest.
Well, in case some of our viewers have a model they want to commission, what's the name of your website?
The name of the website is intothings.com.
So that's INTOTHINGS?
That's correct.
.com?
Intothings.com.
Intothings.com. Okay, it's a clever play on your last name.
That's good for something.
It is. Let's take a look at that nice large motor yacht over there.
This is being made for someone in the San Francisco area. Unfortunately, this boat burned several years ago.
This one, or the actual boat?
The actual boat.
Oh dear.
Okay, this model may look a little strange in its finish. That is because it's made with Baltic birch aircraft plywood in order to get the raised panel effects.
John, I want to thank you. It's been fascinating, and again, that's intothings.com if you want John to make a model for you. But he's obviously a very patient craftsman, and it may take a couple of years, but it's going to look great when it's done, right?
Absolutely.
John, thank you very much. We're on the road. This is Steve Izant. This segment's going to be on tugboats. One of the things that the Maritime Museum does well is it celebrates life on the bay. They have an exhibit right now called Push and Pull, Life on the Chesapeake Bay Tugboats. So let's take a look at some of the exhibits that they have here. So first, let's talk about how did they control the boats, forward and back, full speed, half speed. You're looking at how the system works right there in front of you. In the upper left-hand side of your screen, you see the control mechanism that was on the captain's bridge. And with that handle, he would signal to the crew down below what he wanted to do, whether he wanted to stop or go slow or forward or back, and he'd move that handle. That handle would move the same handle that you see right in the middle of your screen. And of course it would ring a bell. It would ring several bells, and those are the bells down below. So when you're in a movie theater and you see, or on television, you see a movie that has an old-time boat that has one of these systems, and you see the captain throwing the handle, that's actually how it worked right there in front of you. We're next going to take a look at a typical engine in a tugboat. What you see is a typical steam engine that runs a tugboat. It's pretty big compared to the engines today. Huge big pistons right in the center. An engine like that was relatively efficient. It developed 700 horsepower, but it also took 4 people to keep it running. So not nearly as efficient as the small engines that tugboats have today. But that engine that you see right there is here in the steamboat exhibit for tugboats at the Maritime Museum. Next we're going to take a look at a couple of models. Now, this is a model of the Atlantic Coast tugboat. That steam engine that you just saw in the previous segment developed 700 horsepower. The modern engines in this boat develop 3,000 horsepower. Also notice, compared to your old-time tugboats, this one has a high captain's nest 50 feet above the water line. This is a towing tugboat as opposed to a pushing tugboat. You'll see that it does not have big bumpers because this is for towing large barges. So this model of the Atlantic Coast, which is an actual still working tugboat, is on display at the tugboat exhibit at the Maritime Museum. Well, the model of this little tugboat, the Baker Whitley Coal Company, was built in 1920, and you can see, of course, it's much smaller than the Atlantic Coast tug that we just saw. This is completely steam powered, so not only does the engine run on steam, but everything else does, the winches and the whistle, for example. This little tugboat, though, only had 700 horsepower compared to the modern Atlantic Coast, which had 3,000. So that's the end of our visit to the steamboat and tug exhibit here at the Maritime Museum. All right, so we've got Coastie, the Coast Guard cruiser here. I understand little Coastie's got a bit of a personality.
Oh, yes, he does. Get his camera. Coastie, go get his camera.
Coastie, we're on the road. What do you have to say for our viewers?
I have a hard time backing up.
Oh, he is. Well, but he's shy. Is that what it is? So what about boating safety? What's important about boating safety that our viewers should know?
Wear your life jackets like seatbelts. If you don't wear them, they don't count.
I think that's absolutely right. Well, you're on the road, and we want to thank Coastie for being part of this. Well, thank you, Coastie. All right, did you see that, viewers here? That's a secret code from Coastie which says, always wear your life jacket. This is On the Road.
Thank you for coming.